Hey, hey, hey. Yay. I think it works. This is awesome. So, I want to make sure that Bree is here and joining me. So, I don't know if I see Bree. Bree, are you on here with me? Seems to say that you are. Bree. Okay, I'm going to add you as a panelist and then maybe you'll show up in the video. Yes, Bree. Hey, hey, hey. I'm so excited we are live. Yes.
It's working.
It's working. I cannot see you. I only see a picture of you. I don't know if you can
Oh, okay. Hang on. Start video.
see me or a picture, but I am so pumped to have you here. Where are you? You're in Australia, somewhere in the beautiful, bountiful Australia.
Okay, it says, I am in Australia. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. It says, I can't start video because the host has stopped it.
Oh,
so I think maybe you have to allow my video.
Let's see. How do I do that? Oh, yes. Okay, I see. Oh, forbid. No, I don't want to forbid. Let's see. It doesn't seem to have an option that I'm blocking your video, but you're right. It does have a picture where you're locked out. Interesting. Put on hold, make host. I'll make you the host. You want to switch? Okay, let's see if that helps.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yes, it worked.
It worked. We've done it.
Yay. Welcome to everybody on Facebook Live. I can't see the actual Facebook Live feed, so I don't know if we can see people commenting or anything. Let's see here. I'm trying to pull that up at the same time, but we'll see. I think people are able to watch it. Either way, we're going to have this recorded so we can share afterwards. So let's just do that. And
yes, it looks like it's definitely sharing. It's sharing on your profile by the looks of it.
Yeah, on the FitMama. Perfect. Okay, great. So I think they can see us. I know that there's a little time-space lag, but that doesn't matter. Let's just dive into it. I have been reading on my phone. I downloaded the Kindle app for free on Amazon. I downloaded your book and I cannot stop reading it. Today I was in line somewhere. I'm like, oh, own your BS, own your BS. I was like, I was glued to it. I was loving it. I'm so pumped. So tell me, wow, where do we even start? How did you get here? You wrote this book, Own Your BS.
Yes. So it's been a bit of a journey that has surprised me a lot of times. 5 years ago, there was no way on earth I would have thought that a book was even in my future, let alone a possibility. So I suppose it's kind of grown organically just because the more that I have taken ownership of how my thoughts sabotage and hold things down, the more I've been able to recognize that other women are doing it as well. And that you see all the time women trying to fill up the holes with, in your instance, they're filling it up with diet fads and excessive exercise and all of these external things. It doesn't matter what they try and fill it up with, the thought is still sabotaging the effect of it and the long-term success of whatever it is they're trying for. So
yes, I love that. I love that. And you go into detail about your own thoughts and some of the negative head talk that you had prior to really learning about the female brain and how it works with hormones. And we're going to get into all that tonight because that stuff we're all dealing with that. That is not, just in Australia. Thank God you wrote this book out of Australia, but it's happening everywhere, right?
Yeah, totally.
Mamas all the time. It's coming for this idea that you need to change, right? And I love what you say in your book about this idea of transformation. And I myself, as a transformation coach, it's all about you in a bonus way, right? The best part of you, this unveiling of the best you, because every day that you learn new things, you can improve, but you don't have to improve because you don't suck. It's not like you have to change, right?
That's it. And that's what I loved. And so Marilyn Shermer is my trainer, and she was, she's one of my most sought after mentors. I love it a bit. And she was the one who introduced me to the whole transformation rather than change. Because, and I think I said it in the book, change is such a scary thought for so many people, because it means we have to admit that who we are is wrong, and who we're going to be is scary, because we don't even know who that is. Whereas this idea of transformation, and I have a theory, and I don't know whether I talked about it in the book or not. I thought I was going to, but I think I didn't. Oh no, maybe I did. I was talking about a staircase. So in my view, the way that life sort of represents is as this staircase where, you know, you'll cruise along the plateau of the step for a little while, and you might have some ups and downs, but it's nothing that really rocks your world too much. You're able to handle it. And then the rise of the next step comes to greet us. And it's quite often not until we get right up against the rise of the step that we go, oh God, I'm stuck. I can't move forward. I don't know how to go. So it's that recognition that you're at that base, and taking responsibility that the only one who's going to get you from the base to the top of the next step is you. And then you get to the next step, and then guess what? The step moves again, and you ride the plane again, and the tread runs for a little while, and then something else happens and another rise comes. Yes. So the tread can vary in length and the rise can vary in height. But the trick, I think, is being able to recognize before you get completely stuck at the tread, oh, there's a challenge coming. It's an opportunity to grow. What am I going to do now before I feel like I've got no options left? And if you do get to that point, being able to say it's okay to go back, because taking it back is going to give me a different perspective so that I can then move up.
Such a good perspective.
Yeah.
A really good analogy, and it helps us understand, because there is always that next rise, right? Now, how about this idea of continuous achievement? Is it okay to just enjoy those plateaus for a bit? Because I do sense this urgency all the time. And I know it's in myself too. I'm this kind of type A, you know, go, go, go. What else is next? I can't wait. And it sometimes is exhausting, right?
Yeah.
And where do we draw that line? Or where do we know that it's not just BS, or it is? Because that's one thing I know I'm coaching clients on. It's, okay, I'm tired. Is that my BS, or is that legitimate? My body needs to rest. How do I know? Because I'm so in my head, right? Or I'm anxious, or I'm tired.
So I think that comes back down to being able to tune into the body as well. Because we as women, we are more intuitive. We are naturally intuitive beings. And too often we get so caught up in here that we forget to listen to that gut space. So I think it's about finding that balance of being able to go into the body and go, okay, this is the thought process. Is there a negative emotion attached to it? Because my body is going to tell me if there's an emotion connected to it. I'm going to feel like crap. And if it's an emotion, okay, that's BS. Let's work with it. Let's do something to reduce the intensity of it so that I can, you know, let it go. If, however, there's no emotion, or the emotion's fairly low, then maybe that's just a sign that you do just need to chill. And particularly with things like guilt. I mean, guilt is such female emotion. Men don't do guilt. I shouldn't say all men, that's a generalization, but the majority of men do not resonate with guilt. It's a feminine-based emotion. And guilt is what stops you from being able to smell the roses. Yeah. And not only just guilt, but also unworthiness. So it's I should be doing X, Y, Z. I should be doing something else instead of smelling the roses. Or I'm not good enough to take this time out. You know, this is not allowed for me. I'm not worth taking a day to just be me. I have to keep pushing because I'm proving myself constantly by proving my worth.
Yes. Now, would you say that's all learned behavior, just habit patterns that we've done over and over? What?
Oh gosh, I could go into so much. It's a little bit of A and a little bit of B. So it comes as a result of our perceptions of the way that we live and our life experiences, but it also stems from, and later in the book, I know you've just started, you're sort of in the early phases, but towards the end of the book, I start to talk about epigenetics. So epigenetics is this, it's a very valid science that is really picking up a lot of interest at the moment. And there's every university around the world is studying epigenetics. And what they're proving is that minimum 5 generations of emotional baggage are passed from one generation to the next. Now, if you look at the female gender, you've only got to go back to maybe your grandmother's generation, and suppression is like huge. Guilt trips were the way that women were controlled. So yes, it's a learned behavior, but it's also an inherited behavior. that because we're females and because of our hormones that trigger these epigenetic switches and these life events that trigger these epigenetic switches, it's not just our stuff. Epigenetics. I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago which really helped me to get it in my head how this works and why it's so important for women to recognise it. So when your mum was pregnant with you, while you were developing as a fetus, your eggs, which are your girls, were also being created while you were still in utero. So however your mum was while she was pregnant with you is also impacting your girls, who were only cells within your fetal body at that time. Now, while you were pregnant with them, the little girls, the potential little girls that they have are being formed in them while they were still in utero to you. So there's 3 generations in one pregnancy that is impacted by the emotional state of that carrying mama.
Incredible. Wow.
Nuts.
And thank you for sharing that. And that kind of is a good segue to the statistic that you do share in the beginning of the book, and one that I have been teaching for a really long time. I remember teaching this to a running group when I was back doing my master's. So it was probably almost 10 years ago now. This idea that we have about 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And that's a lot of thoughts. But about 80% of those are just repeats of yesterday. Yesterday. Yep. The same thing. So now you're saying it was the same thing my mom did or said or thought, and her mom said or thought. And I look at my grandma going, we don't think alike. So what am I having to shed that, right? But that's epigenetics, right? That's where there's nature versus nurture, right?
Yes. Yeah, so there's nature versus nurture versus genetics, that epigenetic. It's a 3-way kind of pie now. It's not just that clear-cut one or the other. And not everything, everything that your mum felt or that your grandma felt is going to be felt within you. It can lay dormant in your body. And this is what happened to me in my book. So I talk about how I had my son and I was all good. And I had my daughter and a bad mood started to come over me. And it was the second pregnancy combined with this really stressful situation that we put ourselves into that activated this genetic conditioning that had been laying dormant in my genes. So you can go your entire life not being angry, as was my case, or not feeling unworthy. And then either a hormonal fluctuation, such as pregnancy, puberty for young girls is also another trigger. Perimenopause and menopause is another hormonal trigger. So there are 4 or 5 instances in the average female's life where hormones are going to fluctuate, and this fluctuating hormone can turn on this epigenetic switch. There's also events, and events can be something as minor as an argument with a girlfriend, or something severe like a death or a tragedy or a car accident. So we're prone to these switches being activated many, many times throughout the year. And this is why, and I think, again, I spoke about it in the book where I talked, it's like a switch just went off and I didn't know how to turn it back on. I became angry and I didn't know. I knew that I was overreacting. I knew that I wasn't behaving in the way I wanted to behave, but I didn't know how to turn that reaction off. So it's about being aware of what's actually going on so that you can then address that switch when it happens.
Is that not blaming yourself, right? Not feeling that guilt and feeling there's something wrong with me, but instead asking questions, right?
Yes.
So did
you
questions?
learning.
How did you go? Like, you didn't know about these switches then? Like, tell me, how did that kind of happen?
So it initially started with that whole awareness, and 3 of the most simple questions that a woman can ask herself is, what am I doing? So is there a physical, because, and you want to track this, and I talk about it in the book, and there's a download that you can access where I'm going to encourage you to do it multiple times a day for at least a month so that you can start to see your patterns. So you want to know, what are you doing? If it's a physical task that triggers these thoughts, you want to recognize that trigger so that you can change the trigger. So what are you doing? What are you thinking as a result of what you're doing? What am I feeling as a result of what I'm thinking and what I'm doing? So if you're able to ask yourself those 3 questions every time you start to feel an emotion surface, you then start to understand where the connecting patterns are coming from. And then with that foresight, you can go, okay, well, every time I'm stuck at home with the kids and I'm responsible for cleaning the house, I get angry and agitated because I'm feeling like I don't have support. So in that instance, what can I do to try and communicate my frustrations in a better way so that I can bring in some more support? Maybe I need to have a conversation with my husband or say I need help.
I love this. And you created an amazing table that's in there that helps kind of outline this. I took a screenshot on my phone. So I was like, I'm going to refer back to this later because it had these columns. So I encourage you. Right now, the book is what, 99 cents? I got it for Canadian here, but I know same in Aussie. It's $1 something. Right?
$1.33 in Australia.
Steal. It's a steal because I'm going to refer back to it and it's right there on my phone, right? Yeah. That's amazing. So this is not just a book about all kinds of information. It's really a book to help you take action. I mean, I wanted to journal the rest of the day after I started this book. And I was like, well, I have things to do. Oh my gosh, but with the thoughts, I got to get them out. I got to figure it all out, right? So it's an action book. It's really something that is very empowering. And
it's no fluff.
No, it's no BS, right? It's own your BS, but no BS on the way. So you teach emotional confidence, and that is part of this process. So maybe share a little bit about how that connects with owning your BS and the confidence piece. Because I know for me, when I'm working with FitMamas, them taking action steps towards their goals, getting moving every day, eating foods that nourish them, they feel good with, those things really start with them feeling confident. And like you said, feeling deserving of taking that time or taking those resources. I'm eating this healthy food. These are resources I could be giving to my family, right? And in the past, in generations, it was like mom eats last, mom eats the cold eggs, mom eats the toast crust. Been to that movie. I still attend it, right? It happened, right? Because it's like, oh, they deserve it. Oh, look at the perfection. Oh my gosh, I can't even think straight because I haven't nourished myself. So where does the confidence piece come in, and how do we build that into our lives when they feel so chaotic and we are tired or triggering this?
It's something as well that I think you have to recognize it's going to take time. It's not something that you're just going to wake up tomorrow morning and go, oh, I'm confident. If you've had these sabotaging habits for years, then it's going to take years consciously to turn it around. Now, there are shortcut ways that you can bypass that, and that's when I work with my clients one-on-one. I have a program called Emotional Detox, and that is what we do in the detox. We bypass that conscious effort to be able to just clean out the soul. However, before you can get to that point, you still have to be aware of what's going on. An unconscious mind cannot be healed. An unconscious mind cannot help itself to clarity. So, and I think that's the space between, where you are now. The next step is owning it. So actually recognizing what's actually going on and taking those proactive steps to say, this is not how I want my life to be. These are the choices and this is what I'm going to start doing. And the more you do that, the confidence then starts to build, because all of a sudden you're not focusing on that crap that you keep getting caught up in. You're focusing on what you can control, and that is power. And what comes with power is a sense of confidence, because you've got control. It's tricky at times because, like you've said, if you've got all of these other priorities that seem to be more important, we as women, because of our history, we feel like we have to put them first. But everyone who watches this and who's joining us live or who's watching the replay, the number one thing you have to allow is to put yourself first. I got into that big old mess of crazy psycho mama because I was putting my business first, I was putting my kids first, I was putting everybody else's opinions and expectations of who I was first, that I completely lost sight of who I was. And then I lost my self-worth because I was whoever everyone else defined me to be. So you have to be able to say, in some way, it's okay for me to put me first. And the more I do that, the more I'm going to be able to help other people. Yeah. There was a saying, and I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's something along the lines of, all of the rivers downstream start by the purest water up top. And the purest water comes from you. So the more pure you are, the more confident and clear you are about who you are and clear you are about who you want to be, that then streams out to everyone and everything around you. And so yeah, you have to start putting yourself first, because when you're, and the other thing is as well, when you're flat, when you're full of this negative BS that just keeps pulling you down, how can you possibly lift someone else, including your children, up?
Yeah.
Because they are getting the filtered versions of you all of the time.
Yeah.
So it's upside down. We have to put us first and recognize that by doing that, we're actually giving these other people the permission to step up as well.
Very true. And I love that. Now, I know that we hear that a lot, and put yourself first, but what does that actually look like when your whole life is actually constructed to not allow that? And I know I teach people to take the time for themselves and really put a schedule together where they are fit into that schedule. But if everyone revolves around you doing these things, you take care of this, you take care of this, you organize all these things, and you feel like you have the weight of the world, how is this possible?
I think you've got to firstly recognize that you do have control. We all have control over our agendas. We have control over our everyday activities. And yes, particularly when you've got young kids, you are responsible for them and you are the caretaker. So you do have to, be there for them, but you don't have to do everything. I see so many mums thinking that they're going to be the best mum because they've got their kids involved in every activity. No, that's so that's you trying to fill yourself up by making everyone else seem that being busy is being good. No. So you have, and I know that it's tricky. I know it's hard. Hello, gorgeous. Because when my kids were young, so at the time that the book started, oh, we've got another one coming in.
Now we're having a sleepover party, and it's going really well, as you can see. Yes. What is it, baby love? Honey loves. No. Who's going downstairs when you guys can be silent? Okay, Mom's going to come. Mommy's going to come back soon. Okay, you guys listen to Miss Bree then, okay? Please stay, all right?
I was going to say, I know how challenging it is, because at the time of that crazy psycho mama, when, 5 years ago where the book started, I had a business that I was building. My husband had a business that he was building. We were renovating a house that had no electricity for 3 months. We had no kitchen for 5 months and no bathroom for 2 months. So we had a whole heap of stuff going on. Plus my kids were, at the time, Olivia was between 6 months old and 18 months old, and Blair was between 3 and 5. So juggling a whole heap of different roles, totally get it. But look at what that resulted in when I got lost in all of the chaos. It just became more chaotic. It became more destructive. So one of the best tips I think I can give to those mamas who are struggling to put themselves first is to identify, and in the book there's a whole program that you can work through to help you to do this, but identify the 2 or 3 things that are important to you right now. Now, your only priority every day is to honour those things. So if the kids are obviously going to be something that's important to you, your relationship with your husband has to be something that's important to you, separate from the kids, because you want that family foundation to stay strong. If that's the case, if you're by yourself, then you want to have another nurturing relationship where you've got someone else to go back to, because you need that support of a partner, whether it's a romantic partner or just a supportive partner. And then if you've got a business that's important to you, that might be number 3. Now, what I do, I don't know whether I've got a copy of it floating around somewhere. I do, here. Really, really quickly, I'll show you. So this is a basic weekly plan that I set up for me. And you'll see I've got pretty much 3 priorities. Yellow represents my family, pink represents my business, and blue represents a second business that I'm participating in at the moment. At the beginning of every week, I look through that plan and I go, is there balance there? Is my business time creeping into my family time? Because if that's the case, I'm going to feel out of whack. So by you creating your plan, you're taking responsibility for your actions. Likewise, if you've got too much family time there and not enough just you time, and you time doesn't need to be going to the day spa for a massage. You time can just be 15 minutes in the morning before you get out of bed. Hey?
It can be exhausting scheduling more things, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you can space, right?
Simplify it.
Yeah, exactly. Simplify. And so you are so courageous in this book, Bree. I just love it. You really, you get down to the details of what feelings you were having, especially when you were in that quote unquote crazy psycho mama phase, which we all have identified with. I mean, it gets the best of you sometimes, and you are juggling so many things, and we decide we can do it all, right? We can just, everything will work all the time. But what happens is obviously we can't. And then it starts to do those switches, right? So tell me about the female hormone cycle and how all that is kind of integrated, because we are all, most of us are moms. A lot of us have, gone through pregnancy and all the hormone stuff. So share with us a little how that kind of integrates with the head talk.
Yeah. So the hormones is probably something that we do not talk about anywhere near enough. And again, because for the majority of us, we've been raised in this environment where we just have to keep go, 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 go. Now, that go, go, go philosophy comes from a male's point of view, where once they've gone through puberty, their testosterone levels just stay the same until they die. Nothing changes. So for females, every single day, and this is regardless of whether or not you have a period. I think as well, that's a big misconception that you have to have a period to have a cycle. Totally not the case. Regardless of whether you've had a hysterectomy and you no longer have periods, whether you use a contraception device like a Mirena, which stops your periods for 5 years, you will always have a fluctuation of hormones. So I encourage in the book women to start tracking what their hormone cycles look like to them. And again, it's going to take a bit of commitment on your behalf to recognize what those symptoms look like for you. But essentially, you'll start to recognize that there's 4 kind of seasons, we call them. You've got your winter season, which is where your period lies. At that time, your estrogen and progesterone levels are really low. This is the time when women feel like we should be pushing through because guilt is at its highest. But it's a time when we really need to just allow ourselves to take the foot off the pedal for a little bit and just cruise. Now, it doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean you say, oh, I've got my period, I can't work today, because that doesn't, in this Western world, we don't have that luxury. But it does mean you can maybe delegate a few more tasks, or maybe look at the to-do list and go, does this all really need to get done this week, or can I push some of it off to next week when I know my energy levels are going to be a little bit more abundant? So your winter cycle, it's a flat cycle. After you come out of winter, we go into spring. Now, spring is where estrogen starts to boost again. So all of a sudden we feel like we've got life back in our bones. We want to get out there and start socializing. We want to have a bit of fun. So in your spring cycle, you're going to start being more proactive on your to-do list. Summer, again, it runs through. Your estrogen levels are at its highest. Your progesterone levels, rise, which gives you that drive to get stuff done. So you want to make the most of that time. Now, you also do have a mid-cycle slump, because after you ovulate, your estrogen, so your estrogen levels start to drop a little bit, and before your progesterone catches it, you have a couple of days where you might feel a little bit off. Again, it's normal. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just your hormones doing what your hormones do. And then after summer, you go into autumn. So autumn is that crazy psycho mode where, your emotions are going to be heightened. Personal development is not great for you in these periods where you are in your head, because that voice is going to be louder than it is in spring and summer.
Okay, good one. And so how does this all play into the head talk? So when we're in the winter mode or we're in the spring and summer, how, are we thinking of more ruminating thoughts? Are we more anxious thoughts? Or how is this playing into that?
So spring and summer, generally speaking, your head talk generally drops in spring and summer because you've got more action drive. So rather than getting caught up in thoughts, you'll be just going, God, I don't have time for that. I've just got to get stuff done, because you want to get stuff done. Now, if you're finding that you've lost that inspiration, that drive during your spring and summer, it's also an indicator that maybe you need to go and get your hormones checked, because possibly your progesterone is not functioning the way it needs to. So by getting some help to stabilize your hormones, you'll be able to recreate your cycle and get it rolling properly. And a lot of women, their hormones they're shot. Pregnancy does, and it takes the body a few years to get over something like pregnancy. And most of us go and have, baby number 2 within 24 months. So your hormones are not good. So spring and summer, your head talk will generally be a little bit more self-appreciating.
Right.
Autumn and winter is when you're going to feel a little bit more self-critical. Autumn more so than winter. So in the few days before your period is due, or before your estrogen and progesterone levels are at their lowest, you'll find that you will be the most overreactive. You'll get into a state of overwhelm a lot quicker. You'll snap a lot more, and then you'll turn it on to yourself and start to feel even more guilty. And I know with my clients, they all message me around about week 3 of their cycle and go, nothing's working. I'm having such a bad week. Everything's just falling apart. And it's like, love, when's your period due? Or where do you think you are in your cycle? And they're like, oh, yeah, I think I'm about to hit winter. Right. Come back to me in a few days then and let me know how things have changed. And it always changes.
Yes, you're right. That is so, my mom asked me that same question and it kind of drives me crazy, but it's a good one. So thank you for putting things in perspective. In the book, you talk a lot about journaling. And so I'm just wondering if you can share how that is really valuable with those instances where the head talk is going and you want to actually change it, right? It's not like, okay, well, whatever, I'll just accept it right now. I mean, yes, we can accept it, but how do we get out of it so we can take action or just not take action as we need to?
Okay, so your head talk is kind of like your kids. Yeah. All right. So right now, your kids are wanting your attention. Yeah. And so they're all over you. They're trying to say, mama, 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 mama. Your head talk is exactly the same. And while ever it continues to cycle around in the head, it's going to get louder and it's going to get more naughty because all it wants is your attention. It doesn't care what you do with it. It just wants you to say, I see you. And this is why journaling is so powerful, because when you physically take it out of your head and put it down onto a piece of paper, you're bringing the logical part of your brain into the equation. And so all of a sudden your logical brain looks at it and goes, that's a whole bunch of words. Your emotional brain, the head talk brain, goes, thank God someone's heard me. And now 2 things will happen. Either just that physical act of writing it down will be enough for the head talk to go, thank God she's actually heard what I've got to say. I can let it go. Or it'll go, okay, now you've seen it. This is a problem for me. It keeps coming up. What are you going to do about it? Yeah. And this is why I love journaling, because when you see what you're thinking to yourself in black and white, when I first wrote down those words, I hate being a mum, it was the most confronting sentence I've ever heard myself say. And I burst into tears and I was like, I'm such a bad person. I cannot believe that after the struggle we had to even conceive our kids, I would now feel this way. But when I looked at it on paper, I felt so uncomfortable. And remember, my gut came into it then because I felt sick. I felt crappy. I burst into tears. I then had that emotional, physical reaction that went, this is not good enough. This thought, I deserve better than that, and my kids deserve better than that. So I've got a choice now. I can either allow that thought to dominate or I can do something with it. And that's where, courage, I suppose, does come into it, because you do have to then start doing stuff differently. Nothing changes until something changes.
Yeah. And you can only face it for so many times before you're like, this is too painful, this is just too painful to go on. You're right.
Sometimes, and I say this to my clients, because you have to be ready to change. Yeah. So sometimes you have to sit in the shit. There's no other way of saying it. Sometimes you just have to sit in your shit until you're sick to death of yourself. So hit bottom of the barrel. And when you get to that point, that's when you go, nah, I will do whatever it takes. And when you've got that kind of commitment, that's when transformation happens very quickly, because you're committed to doing whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, it looks like these two guys, we're talking to Ms. Bree, and she has a lot of amazing information. We're going to read more about her book and interview her again, because this has been awesome, Bree. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great to have you here. So your book is out, Own Your BS, the No Guide. So we can find it on Amazon. We're going to link to it under this video. So
yes, and it's available again for about another week for that 99 cents US. So I would encourage you to download it and then actually use the tools, because those tools are going to be, you can read it and do nothing with it and it'll be just another book you read once. or you can read it and physically do something with what you've learned, and that then gives you that potential new habit to start to develop. So do something with it. The implementation is super important. And then if you love it, please leave a review. Amazon review me.
Yes. Well done. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you on behalf of all the Fit Mamas and the girls and myself. And enjoy. Have a great day in Australia. We'll see you.
Thank you for having me. You have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.